First of all, allow me to greet you with Islamic greeting. May the peace and blessings of the Almighty God be showered and bestowed upon you all. I'm so honored and I'm equally thrilled to be amongst you all here today in a place that I do not consider myself to be a stranger in, but a place where I really feel at home amongst people that I do not consider as friends or neighbors, but extended family members of mine. Now, a lot of you know me as Hassan, but unfortunately a lot of you don't. And let me explain how. You see, in Christmas Day I arrived here. I was so happy to celebrate Christmas with all of you. We had a joint service. Things were going well. Reverend David Hart was here. Sayyid Muhammad Baqir Qazwini was here. We're talking about spirituality, joy, Jesus being born. Then all of a sudden I see that discussion is slowly shifting, entering about love and babies and relationships. And then a certain individual came up to me and told me, stand up. And I instantly stood up. And suddenly, from talking about Jesus and his birth, he started talking about me and my failed relationships and how I can't find a life partner. And then I was just there in shock, and my eyes were open, wide open, surrounded by laughs and giggles. And I'm questioning myself, like, am I really in church, or am I being, met by a rap from Christian Connection? But no, I was in church. I entered this door known as Hassan, and I left with many nicknames, like the Bedford Bachelor, Mr. Single and Ready to Mingle, and the Handsome Beardo. I made that up. So, my name is Hassan, and that certain individual is so smart and wise because today he is not here. He is absent. He knows that payback is coming, and I'm going to be wise. I'm not going to say anything because I can't backbite someone who's not present. But Reverend David, I'm coming for you one day. And I'm sure that his spirit is here amongst us all. I dearly love him and thank him. Now, before I start my discussion, allow me to give you a brief overview of what I'm going to spend my next, hopefully, 20 minutes of time. I hope that's not too long. Firstly, I'm going to talk about who the Prophet is, his childhood, his upbringing, and his journey until he became a prophet. Then I'm going to discuss the night of revelation. What happened when he became a prophet and what verses descended from the heavens. From there, I'm going to discuss some core principles and values that are reflected and highlighted in the Holy Qur'an. Talk about how people receive that, how this holy book impacts me today as a source of enlightenment and empowerment. And then close off by diversity and emphasizing a little bit about it. So let's start our discussion. Now, when the Holy Prophet, Prophet Mohammed, opened his eyes to the world, he opened them as an orphan because his dad passed away before his birth. And it was only 6 years until his mother passed away too. Not that he spent much time with her anyways. 2 years after that, his grandfather passed away. So by the age of 8, he didn't have a father, a mother, or a grandfather. And it was his uncle who took care of him. Now imagine this. What a start to his life. A life that is filled with toughness. There's no stability. There's a lot of challenges. But this did not stop him from progressing because greatness was his destiny. These difficulties and calamities acted as an encouragement and inspiration for him to revive his courageous spirit and face more adversities yet to come. And this is a beautiful reflection for all of us. A lot of us are in need of one single excuse for us to not seek our dreams and seek greatness. But greatness is all about resilience. It's about that flame of determination in your heart that never dims or dies out. And that was the Holy Prophet. He gave to others what he did not necessarily earn from love, from compassion, from mercy. While he was born in a reputable and noble family, he was working hard since childhood. He started as a shepherd, dealing with the animals, secluded with nature. As he grew a little bit older, he was involved as a trade merchant because his uncle was involved in trade. Now, when you're a trade merchant, it's necessary for you to travel and interact with a lot of people. The Holy Prophet was able to interact with people and captivate them and gain popularity because of two traits that became his nickname. What were these traits? He was known as Muhammad the Honest, Muhammad the Trustworthy. And this is how he gained the love of people. Speaking of people, what were the people like in this era? Let me tell you, these people were unfortunately uncivilized, cruel, a lot of bloodshed, a lot of hatred, a lot of selfishness and greed. They would worship idols, bury their young baby daughters alive. All of this hurt the tender heart of the Prophet, and his goal was to finally enlighten them from their darkness, from this polluted corruption, and bring them to guidance and light. That was his goal. He was ambitious. He was hardworking. He was dedicated. He was involved in society. But at the same time, that doesn't mean that you cannot connect with God. While he was amongst the people, his heart was always connected with the skies. He sought seclusion from people. Usually at nighttime, he would leave Mecca, go to the outskirts in a mountain. That takes about 30 to 45 minutes to climb, and there is the cave of Hira. What did he use to do there? That was his time for meditation and prayer and seclusion to God. This is a lesson for us. When we love someone, we yearn for an opportunity to spend some quality time alone with them. And what better way than to spend quality time with your Lord when all eyes are closed in the tranquility of night. And that's what he used to do. He used to stay in the cave and look around him, amazed by the stars, the moon, the plants, nature. All of these acted as reminders, as signs of the existence of a God. And as he would look around, he would glorify and praise and pray to God. Pondering is an important way for us to open our thinking horizons and recharge our spirit. And that's why pondering is considered as a very high esteemed act of worship in the religion of Islam. This tradition continued for years until a special, unique night. The Prophet at that time was 40 years old. And in an ordinary night of reflection and pondering and seclusion from people, something happened that transformed the landscape of humanity forever. A message was sent from God to a man that he described as a man who was sent as a mercy to mankind. The angel Gabriel descended from the heavens, and he wanted to bring forward the first verses of a new religion and a new book called the Qur'an. Now imagine you want to bring something new, something that should connect with all of humanity. So the first verses have to be important, have to be critical. What would these verses be? This is what angel Gabriel revealed to the prophets. Read. Read in the name of your Lord who created. He created the human out of a clot, a blood clot. Read in the name of your Lord, the most generous. He who taught by the pen what the human did not know of. Wow, what a universal message. God is asking humanity to read and learn and earn knowledge. In these few verses, God shares a reminder to us that I am your creator. I created this vast universe. And amongst my most noble and honorable of creation is the human being. And then he shares the development of the human, who started as a blood clot, insignificant, tiny, but he grew to be that human, that big, empowering human. And he, the human, or she, the human, was empowered by what? By by knowledge. God made them the possessors of knowledge. And knowledge is the platform through which civilizations can grow. And that was only possible through what? Through the power of this, the pen. Because until the pen was introduced, that's how civilizations were written and knowledge was passed from one generation to another generation to be elevated. This pen that is so neglected, or that was so neglected back in the day, in that era, that was the reason that today we all understand that this is the leader of civilization. Knowledge is what we need to advance forward. After this night, the Qur'an was sequentially revealed over a course of 23 years. Towards the end of that phase, 114 chapters were revealed in the Qur'an, 6,236 verses. Now you might ask, 23 years, that's a long time. Why can't it just be revealed in a short time frame? And then this is another reflection for us. My dear family, God acknowledges that change requires time. People need time to understand, to absorb, adapt, and implement. Therefore, if he was to introduce everything all at once, people would be overwhelmed. They would not be motivated to implement all these changes all at once. That's why changes were introduced one by one. So when we want to introduce change in our lives, and whatever it is, it's in our habits, our jobs, our relationships with people, self-development, know that change is a gradual process, but it's all about persistence and small baby steps. If who you are today is better than who you were tomorrow, or if who you are the moment you put your head on that pillow to sleep is better than the same person who woke up that day, you're on the right track. Don't overwhelm yourself and know that change takes time. Now, what is it that this holy book talks about? 114 chapters, so many thousands of verses, and it's a tough mission, honestly, to try and summarize everything now in a few minutes. But I'll try my best to summarize it into 4 main teachings. The first teaching that the Qur'an emphasizes on is the oneness of God. A continuation of the messages of the previous prophets, from Adam passing by to Noah, Abraham, Moses, and Jesus. God is one. He's the one who we should worship. He's the one who our actions should be devoted to. And God in the Qur'an gives a lot of reminders about His divine attributes so our limited understanding and comprehension can relate to Him. Also signs of His creation so we can connect with His greatness. With that, God talks about His justice and the Day of Judgment. The Qur'an is filled with reminders because people are forgetful that, hey, this world is great, but one day we are all gonna die. And then we're gonna be judged by the quality of our deeds, good and bad. In that day, God is gonna be merciful, but He's gonna be fair. So we need to prepare for that day. The third aspect and dimension is storytelling. The Qur'an has a lot of storytelling about ancient prophets and civilizations for people to reflect and ponder on. Let me give you some examples. Prophet Moses is mentioned by name 136 times. Prophet Jesus is mentioned 25 times. More fascinating facts, Mary, peace be upon her, she is the only woman mentioned by name in the Qur'an, 34 times. And she has an entire chapter under her name. Prophet Mohammed, guess how many times he's mentioned? 4. And that should show you how Qur'an is inclusive. It's all about tying things to the ancient prophets, the ones before. It's a continuation of the message. It's not an introduction of something brand new. This is, in summary, what the Qur'an talks about. But you see, knowledge is great. All of this is under the umbrella of knowledge. But there's something without knowledge you will not be able to advance. You will not be able to captivate the hearts of others. And that is mannerism. The Prophet said, I have not been sent but to perfect noble character. At a time where people were desperate to improve their morals, He came to set a new moral standard and ethical code for people. So, Qur'an introduced a lot of emphasis on social justice, humanitarian principles, freedom, empathy. I cannot really summarize everything, but I'll just give you some examples. If you save a soul, a life, it's as if you saved the entirety of mankind. And if you kill a soul, it's as if you killed the entirety of mankind. Walk on earth humbly. Don't be extravagant. Don't be suspicious. Don't be envious. Don't hate. If an arrogant and ignorant person insults you, reply to them with peace. After the obedience of God comes directly the obedience of your parents, so respect them. Neighbors, do not forget your neighbors. Underprivileged people, poor people, help them. It's your obligation. It goes on and on and on. Humanitarian values that every single person can connect with. How do you think people receive this? You know, it sounds great, sounds like something anyone can connect with. But the people in that time, oh, they were not happy with this. You think I'm going to give up my idol worshipping that me and my parents and grandparents and an entire lineage was doing? No way. So they responded to these beautiful messages with the mockery of the Prophet. They called him a lunatic, a sorcerer, magician. They attacked him, they mocked him, they stoned him. And how did he respond? One thing only. He just prayed for their guidance. And it was like this for 13 years since the start of the revelation. Imagine 13 years he was bearing this in his hometown in Mecca until he was eventually forced to leave and depart and migrate to Medina. And that migration, in Arabic it's called Hijra, and that migration marks the Islamic calendar, the Hijri calendar. Now, I want to share something interesting here. Obviously, the Prophet, through this hate, he was able to captivate and penetrate their hearts with his mannerism. He didn't, give privileges for his acquaintances over strangers, over men, over women, over this color. No, it was all equal. He was all loving, all compassionate. Whether you met him for the first time or 100 times, he will still greet you, welcome you, smile. There was a group of early Muslims, about 83, who just could not bear it anymore. It was just so much oppression. And they decided to flee and migrate and seek refuge in another place. And this is where I want to describe to you how Christianity ties with Islam and how interfaith was starting even back in that day. So these people sought the advice of the Prophet. They told him, we need help. Where should we go? We can't. It's just too much on us. What we're going through is too painful. We'll give up our lives here, our belongings, our friendships, family. We can't. So the Prophet told them, go to Abyssinia, which is now Ethiopia. There, it's a Christian land ruled by a Christian ruler called Najashi, and he is a just ruler. You go there, he will honor you, and this land is pure and good for you. So these people went there. When the king, saw them, he was so hospitable, he welcomed them. And then a dialogue happened. He asked them, who are you? What are you introducing? And then one of the people started describing how Islam transformed them, how they were before in the age of, ignorance and how they are now. And then he told them, recite some verses for me. You know what that individual, his name is Ja'far ibn Abi Talib, he recited? He recited verses from the chapter of Mary. Similar verses to what here on Christmas Day, Sayyid Muhammad Baqir Qazwini recited. And I want to greet him because he is a source of inspiration to me. A lot of you interacted with his story. A lot of you cried. And I want to share with you something, because while that person was reciting verses from the chapter of Mary, something was happening. The king and his bishops were starting to cry too. And then a couple of verses were revealed in the Qur'an about this incident. God says that the closest to you in love and affection are those who call themselves Christians, because amongst them are learned and they are not arrogant. When they hear what has been revealed to the Prophet, you see tears running down their cheeks from what they heard of truth. Amazing. And you see how even in that past day, there was a connection and bridge and dialogue between Christianity and Islam. Christians would come and visit the Prophet and they would pray to Jesus in his mosque. There was dialogue. People were living in peace. Now, what else was unique about the Qur'an is its eloquence. Arabic language is so expressive. And back in that era, the Arabs were poetic. They were so good with poetry. But they were mesmerized by this Qur'an because the words were they're just unique, you know. They're not from a creation. There have to be a source above. So that was one dimension. The other dimension is the Qur'an. If you go to any Muslim house today, you will all see the exact same version. We believe that these are the exact words of God, not Prophet Mohammed. He was just conveying them. And there's just one unified version in every Muslim house. Also, what's interesting is there's a lot of scientific references that modern day technology and science has been revealing. That the Quran was mentioning 14 centuries ago. For example, that oxygen decreases when you go in altitude high, that the world was a small, particle and then it exploded, what else? That the universe is in a constant stage of expansion. The stages of the growth of the embryo, the solar system, amazing. So these all were aspects that made the Quran unique. I know I'm talking a lot. I'm just going to wrap things up now by how the Quran impacts me today. Honestly, it's difficult to summarize it, but there's maybe two dimensions that really shake me to the core. One is whenever I'm down, whenever I'm depressed, whenever I'm anxious, whenever I'm lacking purpose, push, I just remember some of the verses and it just charges me up. God tells me, I'm closer to you than your jugular vein. I love you. Even if you sin, when you repent, I love you. I love those who make mistakes and come back to me. With every hardship comes ease. If you take a step to me, I'll take 10 to you. If you perceive something as bad, it might be good for you. Be righteous, be good, and I will open doors of sustenance for you in unimaginable ways. When I hear this, obviously I'm charged up with purpose and I go about with my day. Another thing that really inspires me is the fact that the Quran teaches me that gaining the satisfaction of God only happens by interacting and serving humanity. To the extent that we believe in our faith that a smile is an act of charity. And that's why I started my speech with a smile that I need to work on, but it's okay. Lastly, diversity, which is the topic that really I'm the most passionate about. And I can stand here for another hour talking about it, but I'll try to be brief. What Brittany beautifully recited is just two verses that I want to reflect on very quickly. Number one, she recited a verse that says, and amongst God's signs is the creation of the skies and the earth, and the diversity of your tongues and your complexion, your skin complexion. You see, we believe that God is all-powerful. His creation abilities are boundless. And it's only fair that by creating diversity, you can able to acknowledge and appreciate that. A lot of times we only understand things and develop a sense of meaning and value when they are compared with their contrast. So we need diversity, we need options. When we opened our eyes to the world, we did not have the option to choose our race, our skin color, right? But what we have the choice of is to understand our differences. So we need to acknowledge our uniqueness, embrace the differences we have and build upon the similarities. Because each one of us here today, when I look at you, Brittany stole my punchline because I was going to use it. We are like flowers, literally, because we all have within us shared commonalities of existence. But in every single one of you is an immense aspect of uniqueness and singularity. But if you put us all together, just like different puzzle pieces, we form that beautiful mosaic, right? It's just absolutely breathtaking. It's where beauty resides and lies. The second verse that she referenced And amongst the signs that He created you as a male and a female and made you into tribes and nations for you to know one another. You see, this verse teaches me that my religion is all about inclusivity to others, not exclusivity. Because the only criterion that God uses here is the most noble, honorable of you are those who are the most pious, God conscious. So the door is open for anyone, regardless of race, creed, language, to reach that. The door is open, so don't limit it. What else? What else? This verse, know one another. I'm relating it here. Why? Because Reverend David Hart, while we are neighbors for years, he manifested what my book says before us. After so many years of just being neighbors without any dialogue, he decided one day to just walk in. Probably because he smelled a lot of delicious food coming out, but he did. And I was there when he first, walked in. And he just met us like he knew us. He hugged us all. He's a good hugger. And he maintained or started that initial point of contact that it grew to us doing so many things together. And it all started from a greeting, for you to know one another. Don't close your eyes. Don't see in black and white, but see in all colors. This is what diversity is all about. When you see through all people, meeting all people, when you open your arms instead of crossing them, you'll see the truth in different forms, and you'll be able to learn from every single person. How can we tie? Oh, this is so philosophical. Let me just give you an example in something that we can all relate to. Food. If it wasn't for diversity, we would have never heard about pizza, never tried doner sauce, and you all would have thought that falafel is an Arabic curse word. Diversity is good. My closing remark is this. I believe that the pathways to God are as vast and numerous as the breadths of His creation. Don't be overly obsessed about who can reach to God and who can't. We all can. There are different pathways. We all can connect with Him. Just open your arms, connect with one another, because verily we were born for us to know one another. In a world that is dominated by prejudice and hate, change starts within us. The Spirit in me honors the Spirit in you. Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor and an absolute privilege.